We have made it, and we have regular season hockey tomorrow night, and I cannot wait. Let's talk about it.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, we're going to talk about how the season begins tomorrow. That is right, my friends. We are less than 24 hours away from Blues hockey here in St. Louis at Enterprise. I am so ecstatic. Where will the Blues finish this season? That is a big question that a lot of us are asking. Will they be a wild card team again? Will they maybe be in the top 3 in the Central? Probably not, but there's always a possibility. And finally, here we go. There's been games happening across the NHL. Obviously, they had to wait for day 3 to have the best play, but it's fine. But there's been a lot that I've noticed and a lot of key observations I've made about the Central Division that I think we need to talk about. As much as I don't want to talk about the Blackhawks or the Avalanche, we do need to address a few things. So, with all that being said, we have a busy episode today. We have a fun episode today. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. This is not a clickbait type of podcast. I'm not here trying to trick you by the thumbnails. I'm not here trying to trick you by the titles. We are talking daily news and conversation about the Blues. And yesterday, there was news that came out that Oscar Sundqvist was going to be week to week. However, after kind of hearing, Coach Montgomery speak and just all the reporters on it, I do feel more confident that he is going to return sooner than later. Now, it was said yesterday that it didn't seem that serious, but I understand, he's not going to play tomorrow night. He's not going to go on the road trip, which makes sense. But hopefully after that, he will be back on the ice. Another thing I wanted to address was Nick Bukestad. Obviously, he didn't skate. He was sick. That's what it was. He was sick. And I know that there's so many rumors and speculations that people can, come up with, right? Because they want to get clicks and likes and all that stuff. But he was sick. Okay. So at the end of the day, it was nothing too serious. I mean, you're taking precaution when needed. Another update, there's a lot of updates that I kind of noticed going on, but it's about our friend Milan Lucic, right? He didn't make the team. He did sustain a lower body injury. So to clarify, because again, Doug Armstrong said he will be staying in St. Louis to, get better. He will be going to rehab, right? To work on the injury. So that is the update. I feel like every day we learn a little bit of some new things, like kind of sprinkle into the show. But I mean, at the end of the day, when we don't know the full picture, sometimes things can look really concerning to you and I. And I think it's really important that we address what happened. That way we have the clarification as a whole. But I think there is a lot of exciting things going on. And I feel like one of the big pieces, and again, I love to be able to credit these fantastic beat reporters in St. Louis, like Lou Korak, because this is about Logan Mailloux, right? This is on being told to get a place to live in St. Louis, and he said, quote, "It was good. It was the first time I've made a team out of camp. I think it was pretty cool to hear that for sure. Now it's time to get to work. This is just the start of it. Put the work boots on." I love that. That is such a hockey coded answer. Put the work boots on. And when you think about it, with his time in Montreal, he never did make the team out of camp. So I feel like for him, I mean, this is just such a unique experience. Obviously, the Blues had interest in him. That's why they traded for him. He makes the team out of camp. And now he has an opportunity here to really make a mark in St. Louis. So, again, you have to be happy for Mayu. But there's another cool thing that Lou put out. And this kind of got all over the internet, right? And it was Tyler Tucker. We all know Tyler Tucker, one of the most gritty type of defensemen on Logan Mayu. And he said, quote, I didn't really realize how physical and how much of a rat he is out there, which I like. Oh, like that to me is music to my ears because they're going to be playing together, right? And you want to have that type of good chemistry. And Tyler Tucker, he seems like a soft spoken kind of person from whenever he speaks to media. And for him to say that about his physicality and how he's kind of like a rat on the ice, that is a good thing. Being called a rat when it comes to hockey is a good thing. I mean, you can ask Brad Marchand, right? Um, that is a good thing. But I was really happy to hear that. So, again, excellent reporting by Lou. Again, fantastic writer. And another thing that I think that we kind of need to talk about is the fact that I don't think Colton Ellis is coming back because the Blues have agreed to terms with a goaltender, Romanov, for a 1 year, two-way contract. I personally think that this solidifies that they're not going to try to get Ellis back, and that's the Ellis replacement. And I know that there's a lot of Blues fans, right, that are going to say, come on, you could have waited a little bit and try to get Ellis again if Buffalo couldn't keep him since they have like a crap ton of goalies. But at the end of the day, you have to be proactive in this league. And by they, I mean the organization knows a lot more than you and I know. So it does make sense. And again, when players are put on waivers, right, that's an opportunity for you to pick them up. And clearly, when Colton Ellis was put on waivers, Buffalo did not hesitate to pick him up. So, for me at least, this makes me feel a lot better just about the fact that we do have, in my opinion, kind of like a solid replacement for Ellis. I also want to talk to you about the Blues' practice lines and basically an opening night preview. Again, this is Matthew DeFranks. Again, these beat reporters are so on it and they help me so much before, we see the games and we see the play and we can talk about that. So I always want to give credit to where credit is due because doing this podcast, I feel like I'm a journalist, right? I work and cover another team too. And these days and ages, people don't give credit. I don't understand it. So I always want to give credit. So if you're ever like, Haley, you talk too much about these reporters. No, it is me doing my due diligence because they're the ones that show up every single day at the rink and able to provide this information. And while the Blues do send me a lot of audio and they send me things on their own, I'm not going to be able to get this type of information in terms of lines. So, if that being said, here is the opening night preview in terms of lines. On the first line, centering, we already know Robert Thomas. To the left, it is Bushi, and then to the right, it's Snugs. Second line, and by the way, Coach Montgomery did confirm that Braden Shen will be the second line center this season, period. So it's obviously going to be Braden Shen as the center, Dylan Holloway to the left, and then Jordan Kyrou to the right. I love when Holloway and Kyrou play together. So this line to me is absolutely goated. You have the captain, you have Hollywood Holloway, and then you have Ruzi. It is awesome. On the third line, you have Pius Suter. To the left, you have Jakey Neighbors, and then to the right, it's Mojo. Again, such a huge accomplishment for Matthew Joseph. Finally, the fourth line. And Buksat, by the way, he was back today. He was sick. That's why he wasn't there yesterday, but he was back today. So it's Buksat centering. To the left, it's Turchenko. And then to the right, it's Nathan Walker. Texier was the extra player. And I do want to mention too that Oscar Sundquist, because he is out week to week, he most likely still will be the fourth line center, as that's what Coach Montgomery did confirm, that it would have been him. However, he can't physically play. So this is why that fourth line is the way that it is. On defense, I love these pairs so much. And maybe it's because I'm not saying Nicoletti's name, honestly. We have Cam Fowler with Colton Parayko. That is your first line. Fouls and Parayko. What a combo. On your second pair, Philip Broberg and Justin Folk. I kind of feel like Justin's going to have a lot better of a season. And then finally, you heard about the ratty and physical defenseman. Well, Tyler Tucker and Logan Mayu. And the extra was Matthew Kessel. In net, your starting goalie. Big shocker on this one. It's Jordan Binnington. And then backing up, it is going to be the one, the only, Joel Hofer. So those are going to be your opening night lines. Super excited to dive into that game tomorrow. But we do need to talk about a little bit of a season prediction and kind of see how I did that. Well, before we dive into the season prediction, I do want to talk to you about my friends over at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed, it's all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posting on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Personally, I love using Indeed because it is easy to use and you can always find the right candidates at a snap of a finger. I know you're busy, so Indeed does make it easy. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed, it's all you need. And you know what else I need? I need Blues hockey to begin right now. But luckily, we are 24 hours, less than 24 hours away by this time this episode goes up. So even sooner. But I feel like it's really important for you and I to make sure that people can't look back and say, oh, well, you never said this about the Blues. And what am I exactly talking about? It's our season predictions. Obviously, the Central, it is, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion, the toughest division in hockey. There is no doubt about it, okay? But the Blues last season were still able to manage to be a wild card 2 team. Minnesota was wild card 1, and that is who we're facing tomorrow night. But what is it going to take for the Blues to get back into the playoffs? And I feel like that is a question that is open-ended in a sense, right? Because you can talk about players and how the team plays as a whole, but then you can look at it objectively as to what does it take for any team in the Central Division to get into the playoffs. And I do believe, and it's not going to be easy, you might need 98 points. You might need 100 points. However, I do feel like, and I said this once and I'll say it again, I feel like the Blues are going to be a wild card 1 team. I feel like they're better than last year's team. Now, again, I know we haven't seen them play in the regular season, but the last 2 preseason games with their mostly NHL ready lineup made me very excited. But I do believe that this is a much better team. You have Coach Montgomery. I mean, think about the fact that we had Drew Bannister last year as our head coach heading into the season. And I just feel so confident and so good about these guys, about the organization. I mean, this is going to be Doug Armstrong's last year as GM for the Blues before Steen takes over. There's a lot that this season, has for us as fans. And not only that, But the skill set, when you look at the skill set of a Dylan Holloway, of a Philip Broberg, of a Jordan Kyrou, of a Robert Thomas, of a Bushi, of a Jake Neighbors, there are so many talented players on the Blues. You have the Olympics this season. You most likely will have Jordan Binnington as your starting goalie for Team Canada. You'll most likely have Robert Thomas, deservingly so, and Colton Parayko make the team as well for Team Canada. You have Texier playing for Team France. Oh, by the way, I know that he's with Springfield right now, undeservingly, but you do have Dvorsky who will be playing for Czech. So there is a lot of positives. I feel like this is the year, not that they're going to win the cup, but I do feel like this is the year where the trajectory towards the cup begins. Last year, okay, they made it to the playoffs. They lost. They shouldn't have lost, but they lost, right? What can you do about it now? I mean, I personally, I think about it a lot. I'm not going to lie to you. But this season, I just feel like they're going to make it to the second round. I do. I do believe that with my whole entire heart. I believe that this Blues team is going to surprise a lot of people because people might look at the Blues and they might say, you know what, Hale? There's not enough star players on this team. The defense has issues and all of these excuses, right? But in the modern day NHL, I truly believe that you don't need superstars on your team for you to have a good and successful hockey team. I don't. That's not how it is, okay? Times have changed. And I do believe that the Blues have superstars. How can you tell me Jordan Binnington is not a superstar? How can you say that to me? How can you tell me Robert Thomas is not a superstar? That is a lie. Those are two players that are deserving of the title of superstars on the Blues. Maybe if you want to compare them to the rest of the NHL, okay, I could maybe hear an argument. But if we're just talking specifically Blues, yeah, those are the superstars on the Blues. You could even make an argument, honestly, for Jordan Kyrou. You could. You could make an argument for a good amount of players on the team. But I just don't see this team digressing. I don't. There's so much talent too in the AHL. You know, Theo and, like there's like Otto, like there's so many names, right? Dvorsky, like it goes on and on. Stancil. I keep on naming names. I'm like, I'm gonna not name names. I keep on naming names, but there's so many talented players. So if anything happens, and I don't want anything to happen to our guys on this opening night roster, you do know in your bullpen, so to say, you have players that can step up and perform well. I was so impressed, by the way, in this preseason of how these younger guys stepped up. Now, sure, they didn't play the best in some of the preseason games, right? But there's something that I saw that captivated me, and it is progress. And the progress that they made from last training camp to this training camp for me was noticeable. So I asked you on Twitter at Locked On Blues about where you thought the Blues would finish. Granted, I kind of just put this out here, but I was still curious what you had to say. And Scott said, we will just fall short of, wow, the Western Conference Finals. Wow. Hmm. Scott, I was not expecting that at all. Wow. Ah, boy. And then Justin says, we will be a wild card team that nobody wants to play. Damn right. Now, I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to Joshua Tripp, who sent me on my personal account at Haley T. Simon and Locked On Blues a nice tweet. So I want to read it to you because this season is all about you. It's all about my everydayers. You are a part of the show just as much as I am. So I always want to make sure that your voice is heard and that you're being able to recognize yourself in some of the videos sometimes to say, hey, that's me that she's talking about. So he says, I can't wait for today's edition of Locked On Blues podcast. I'm so ready for this season to start. I even watched 2 division opponents last night in the Blackhawks and Avs. So ready to get the season underway. It's been too long for no hockey. Oh, I am the same way too. I cannot wait. But I do want to talk about that. So that is a great transition. It's kind of like I planned that. But before I do so, I want to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because we all know I love my same game parlays. A rare Haley L was last week when the Eagles lost. Obviously, we didn't win our money. But tomorrow night, it is Thursday night football. Boom, boom, boom. Eagles, Giants. Time to redeem ourselves. Eagles money line. Jalen Hurts, anytime touchdown. That's usually a lock. So put your $5 in like I am and make $5 back. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So I really wanted to address what Joshua said about watching our opponents in the Central Division. Because for me personally, I was going to say, you know what? I'm not going to watch this baloney. I don't want to watch the Blackhawks. I don't want to watch the Avalanche. But I have to tell you, I watched and I was surprised about the one, and that was the Blackhawks. Now, evidently, they did fall to the Panthers in a 3-2 final score, but I was really surprised about the fact that they first off got put up. They scored first. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. What is going on? I could not believe it. I really could not believe it. That to me was just such a shocker. I did not think by any means I would be like, oh, Chicago, yeah, they're going to do good. No, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was floored, if we're being completely honest. But that's what it came down to. And again, Frank Nazar, who is a player that, I personally feel like, yeah, he has potential. I just didn't think that he was going to score first, you know. Bertuzzi with the assist, whatever. But then, we had AJ Greer score for the Panthers, and we had a power play goal for Carter Verhaeghe. And the power play goal is actually what made me feel the most confident because, in my opinion, when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is something that we could capitalize with, the Blackhawks maybe not being the best on the on the PK. So for me, I felt like that was interesting, right? But then we head over to the Avalanche and the Kings. Now, it's no surprise that the Avalanche won with a score of 4-1, right? However, what oh boy. Cale Makar, really good player, right? Like a player that you might be like, oh yeah, he is a guy that I wish that we had. I wish we had him too. I'm not going to deny that. Like he is a fantastic player. Um, but here's the thing: he is such an insane player with his assist machine. And at the end of the day, that scares me and that should scare you. I feel like while, yes, he didn't necessarily score any goals, right? The assists that he had made me personally rethink a lot about the Avalanche because I had Dallas winning the Central. I did. I'm not going to deny that. I did. But is it too late for me to say maybe the Avalanche will? Because that was insane. We also, by the way, Nathan McKinnon had an assist, and now he has the most points in Avalanche history. So that happened last night. I know, game one for the Avs in the regular season, and now they're making history. Another interesting tidbit with the game that is currently active. Listen, we keep up to date here on this podcast. Going on right now, it is the Canadiens and the Maple Leafs, and I feel sick to my stomach because Zach Bolduc, he scored. I knew that Zach Bolduc was going to have a good season. And he scored. The game's 2-2, by the way. You have Bruins and Capitals. Bruins up 1-0. Pasta scored. Obviously, like the only good player on that team right now. But that being said, tomorrow it's all about us. We are playing an NHL game, and I cannot wait. So I will talk to you tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.